First at 5. From the University of Florida's College of Journalism and Communications, you're watching WUFT News.
It feels like this is the most interesting university in the country, in that a ton of things that are happening here are incredibly impressive. Obviously, it's a 170-ish-year-old institution that's been doing amazing things for a long time, but the last 3 to 5 to 7 years feel like there's a kind of momentum and trajectory here that's almost unrivaled in the country.
Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska greets the UF community as the sole finalist to become UF's next president. Early this afternoon, he spoke to faculty about everything from lifelong learning to inclusion to tenure. Good evening, I'm Amy Galo.
And I'm Emely Palazzotto. Ben Sasse leader spoke to students inside Emerson Hall as protesters gathered outside. Today, Senator Ben Sasse made his case to Gators in several panels. Some are reluctant to let him into the swamp, others are ready to embrace him.
WUFT's Jacob Sedesse spoke with members of the community. He joins us live to tell us about the initial response.
Amy and Emily, our team traveled campus far and wide looking for anyone willing to comment on the new presidential nominee. Of the very few people who were willing to speak with us, barely any of them had anything nice to say about him. The University of Florida announced Thursday after a long search for its next president that it found its sole nominee, Republican Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska. He paid his first visit to campus since the announcement. In a statement, the university made it clear the presidential search committee thinks he's the perfect fit. But some members of the campus community disagree.
Of all the people you could finally narrow it down to, and, for that matter, the one person had to be, a political person.
Emerson Hall hosted panels where he answered pre-selected questions asked by a moderator. He addressed his controversial political views before he began.
But the reality is, I think most of this job is a very different thing than the political aspects of the job I've just had, and I want to assure you that I'm well aware of those differentiated roles, and frankly, some of that is what appeals to me about this opportunity.
As he spoke, several groups from around the campus community protested. Some students are cautiously optimistic about his potential presidency.
If he removes the politics from it and truly leads, maybe he could be a good fit. However, with that being said, I think the student body as a whole needs to kind of embrace him and listen to what he has to say.
Amy and Emily, even some people on the senator's own side of the aisle were unsure about having someone with a political background presiding over education. One conservative student I spoke with says freedom of speech is important in the world of academia. It's unclear whether his negative reaction from the student body will cause the university to change course. But for now, live from Emerson Hall at the University of Florida, Jacob Sedesse, WUFT News. Back to the newsroom.
Thanks, Jacob. For more on the journey and the politics, we're joined by digital correspondent Elena Barrera.
The selection of a conservative Republican U.S. Senator follows years of what critics called a heavy hand in education by Governor Ron DeSantis and dominant conservatives in the state legislature. Ben Sasse has already said he'll be resigning from the Senate to take this job. His stated views align well with DeSantis on many issues, including restrictions and abortion and opposing student loan forgiveness. Sasse said today he's not a career politician and didn't run for anything else before winning his U.S. Senate seat. He said his re-election with the most votes in Nebraska history shows he represents everyone, and he doesn't expect agreement on every political policy decision.
I fully recognize that the responsibility of being a servant leader and a team member on at an institution as complex as this is a celebratory role for the big and broad, diverse set of initiatives that happen here, and it's a very different calling than the calling I have right now.
Under a new law, the search process was able to be conducted in secret until this stage. The 15-member search committee says it reviewed 700 potential candidates and says it was a unanimous decision to only pursue Sasse. He said he's usually just consulting on searches, but this time UF is too tempting and he's ready to give politics a break.
Thanks, Elena. A team of digital correspondents are dissecting this introductory visit by Ben Sasse. They'll cover the points of views of students, faculty, and the search committee. Remember, this is all in advance of his interview with the Board of Trustees on November 1st. You'll find a growing collection of stories at WUFT.org. It has been so hot outside, nothing like the taste of the fall weather we had last week.
I know, I got so excited when we started seeing cooler temperatures last week. I'm hoping that at least tonight it'll cool down a bit. WUFT's Mariana Larsen joins us now with tonight's forecast.
Well, I have some good news for you. It is going to cool down just a little bit tonight, but I'll get into that in just a second. Right now, let's look at our current temperatures. Right now in Gainesville, it is 87. Ocala is 86, so it's feeling pretty warm out there. But thankfully, it is going to cool down. Tonight, we're going to have a mostly clear night, and we're going to see temperatures in the mid-60s. It's not going to be too cold, but definitely an increase, or I should say a decrease in the temperature from right now. Tomorrow we are going to have fog in the morning. I'll get into that later in my show, but just keep an eye out if you are heading out of the house early in the morning. Back to you.
Sheriff Carmine Marceno of Lee County provided an update today on Hurricane Ian relief efforts in Fort Myers.
As of this morning, we've done 1,125 total rescues. 1,125 rescues. The death toll for the county at this point is 56, and we're still investigating 685 well-being checks as people have called since the storm. So, and 23 vessels and 23 vehicles have been located and searched, and thankfully, thank God, have 0 deceased inside. Most all traffic signals are operational and functioning normally. I can't praise Florida Power and Lighting enough.
North Central Florida has partnered to support areas that were impacted by Hurricane Ian. Santa Fe College President Paul Brody and Florida Gateway College President Larry Barrett teamed up to host a supply drive. The collected items were driven to Southwest Florida earlier this morning. A dozen pallets with needed supplies, including bottled water, toiletries, non-perishable items, and cleaning supplies, were loaded onto Florida Gateway College's semi-truck. The semi-truck then headed towards Ocala to pick up more items at the College of Central Florida before making its way south. 1 person is dead and 6 more injured after a shooting at a Tampa Bay bar. A fight broke out around 3 a.m. Sunday and the Lit Cigar and Martini bar. Police say it involved 2 large groups of people. Witnesses say after the 2 groups were removed from the bar, at least 1 person retrieved a gun and opened fire. 1 man died. The other shooting victims are expected to survive.
Still ahead, Russia doubles down and a celebrity gets rebuffed.
Plus, we'll be talking about U.S. challenges on this World Mental Health Day. We'll bring you the surprising results of a poll about how bad the situation is in America.
You're watching WUFT TV News.
Welcome back. Washington and the world are reacting to a fresh attack on multiple cities across Ukraine. Russia's president says it's punishment for a weekend explosion that damaged a crucial bridge between Russia and Crimea. NBC's Alice Barr reports from Washington.
Fresh terror in Ukraine today as Russian missiles rocked cities across the country, including the capital, Kyiv, where the first attacks in months killed civilians and shattered a relative sense of safety. President Biden condemning what he calls the brutality of Putin's illegal war, promising to stand with Ukraine as long as it takes. Russian President Vladimir Putin calling the strikes retaliation for this explosion that seriously damaged a bridge serving as a crucial military supply line between Russia and the annexed Crimean Peninsula. While Ukraine has not publicly admitted responsibility, President Putin branded it a terrorist attack.
The Ukrainian army is attacking military targets to try to win a war against the Russian armed forces. Putin is attacking civilians to terrorize Ukrainians.
It comes after a series of Russian battlefield losses have ratcheted up the pressure on Putin, who's threatened to use nuclear weapons and instituted a draft to force Russians to fight. Thousands now fleeing the country as rare protests have ignited in the streets.
He's running out of precision-guided munitions. The Russian army is not fighting effectively. The call-up's been a disaster.
The United Nations General Assembly holding an emergency session weighing a resolution to condemn the sudden escalation in the conflict, including Russia's attempted annexation of 4 regions of Ukraine. Leaders from across the world once again forced to confront one man's war. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
In the U.S., Kanye West has been locked out of his Instagram and Twitter accounts. This comes after he released anti-Semitic posts. According to a spokesperson for Twitter and Instagram's parent company, Meta, West, now legally known as Ye, violated their policies with his posts. Media reports show West posted a screenshot of a text conversation with rapper Shawn Diddy Combs. In the conversation, West suggested Combs was controlled by Jewish people. In a tweet, West wrote that he would soon go, quote, DEFCON 3 on Jewish people.
New York Mayor Eric Adams says safety for those seeking asylum remains his top priority. A humanitarian center is expected to open on Randall's Island in the coming weeks, with room for 500 people to stay while they get on their feet. The city says more than 16,000 asylum seekers have arrived in the city in the last few months. Many were bussed in by border state governors who are pushing back against the Biden administration's border policies. According to a recent poll, 9 out of 10 adults believe there's a mental health crisis in the U.S. And on World Mental Health Day, experts say it's time to erase the stigma and raise awareness. Many Americans may not be getting the mental health help they need. 80% of those who took part in a recent poll say the cost of mental health care is a big problem. 63% were concerned about the lack of providers taking insurance.
Today is Indigenous Peoples Day, a day to appreciate the diversity and history of Indigenous communities. Some ceremonies recognize the traditions of the tribes that helped the early settlers by serving as guides, teachers, and even doctors. Countless rivers, towns, and landmarks still bear the names given by Native Americans. Gainesville's Indigenous Peoples event is happening now, downtown, but there will be a special tie-in night at the Harn Museum tomorrow from 6 to 9 p.m.
That sounds like it's going to be such an informative event, and I'm hoping the beautiful weather continues through tomorrow night.
Me too. Mariana, what can we expect?
Well, it is a beautiful day today, but unfortunately I can't say the same for the rest of the week. Stay tuned with me after the break and I'll tell you what exactly to expect.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome back, and let's dive into this weather forecast. Taking a look at the campus cam outside, it looks gorgeous out there. I don't see a cloud in that sky. It's exactly what I like to see on this lovely afternoon. Right now in Gainesville, it is feeling 85 degrees, and across north central Florida, we're in the 80s as well. Let's take a look at our hour by hour for the night. We are going to dip into the mid 60s tonight. It's going to be a little cool, but not too bad. And we are expecting to see some fog in our area, so let's get into that. Starting off, we are going to see the most of it in the early morning hours, so if you are headed to work or to school early, make sure you're keeping an eye on that, especially if you take I-95, because that fog is going to be covering a portion of that highway, but it is going to dissipate by the later morning hours. Now going into the highs for tomorrow, after all that fog clears away, we're going to see Gainesville at 87, Ocala at 88, and Stark at 85. So it's going to feel just about the same, but not too much different at all. Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we are going to see some rain chances in our forecast for this week. It's going to start tomorrow afternoon. So right now, looking at our future track, we see some rain forming along central Florida, but that could move north. It is a little too early to tell, so just keep an eye out for potential rain chances. But Wednesday is when we are really going to see some of those rain clouds pop in and out of our area. As you can see, these showers are popping up, but it's really going to pop up in the afternoon time. Take a look just 24 hours later and we can see all this rain forming along the state, so just keep an eye on that. Now, if you're wondering why this rain is coming up, it's because we have increased moisture in our area. Let's take a look at that. Pausing the frame just around Thursday, you can see all this extra moisture is building up in the area, and it is going to stay like that for the beginning of this week. But eventually that warmer and drier air is going to move in just in time. Now let's take a look at our 6th day. Skipping through this graphic, let's take a look at our 6th day. It is going to be nice and warm, but we are going to see some rain. Back to the desk.
Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are 3-2 this season after their first home win.
Some will win and some will lose on the high school football journey. We'll have that and more when we return with sports after the break.
You're watching WUFT-TV News.
Welcome to sports. I'm Shawn Humphrey. Gator football is on the outside of the AP poll looking in after a tight win at home on Saturday. 2 interceptions for Gator cornerback Jaden Hill was enough to net him SEC Defensive Player of the Week honors. Florida won its homecoming game against Missouri 24-17. This week they'll trade one Tiger for another as they try to break rival LSU's 3-game win streak in the series. Florida head coach Billy Napier says his team is well aware that this game is just a bit bigger than the others.
It's important that you educate the players a little bit about that. I think we're fortunate that we've got some Gators in the building, that have a pulse. Certainly this one is, we got a lot of Louisiana ties in the building as well. So I think there's some awareness here. And, these kids they follow college football, right? So they know this is a big game.
Kickoff for the Tom Petty Day matchup with the LSU Tigers is set for 7 p.m. Friday night lights, mixed results for area teams. Santa Fe dropped to 1-6 after the Sewanee Bulldogs were all bark and all bite. 40-0 Sewanee. The Raiders will get a bye before a tough road matchup against 4-1 Union County. Eastside saw the other side of the coin with a blowout win over the Ridgeview Panthers. 3 touchdowns in the first half for the Rams. It's safe to say Ridgeview got the horns. Just 10 points for the Panthers. Eastside is 4-1 heading into a road matchup versus Newberry. 13-3 Gator volleyball finished the weekend with a tight win over the LSU Tigers. Not 1, not 2, but 9 serves in a row for freshman Alexis Stuckey sent the Gators on a 10-point run during the matchup. The team split the first 4 sets before the Gators took the final set 15-9. Florida has only lost 2 matches since September 1st. The Gators will visit Mississippi State on Friday.
So Amy, I don't know about you, but when I went to Gator Galo on Friday, it was hands down the best concert I've ever seen while I was here at UF.
I loved it, and every single song that came on, I was just thinking back to my childhood, dancing with my sister. It was so much fun.
It was amazing.
Gator Galo attendees were able to enjoy live musical performances, the crowning of homecoming king and queen, and more, celebrating their Gator pride before the big homecoming game against Missouri. Gator great Danny Werfel hosted the show with Fletcher opening and Flo Rida headlining.
Before we go, one quick check on the weather.
Well, I wish I could say it would be cooler so you could wear your apple-bottom jeans with the boots and the fur, but unfortunately it is going to be a little warmer. Let's take a look at our 6-day outlook. We're going to see 80s almost all week long, and we're going to have some rain this week. Back to you.
Thanks, Mariana. BBC World News is next, and the PBS NewsHour is coming up at 7.
But your Florida news is always on at WUFT.org. Have a good night.